Hello one and all, welcome back to the Zekko football channel. Newcastle managed to pull off an incredible victory against Manchester City in the EFL Cup, and today we're going to be having a look at how they did it. We're going to be breaking down some statistics and then having a look at some in-game moments. Before we begin, if you are new to the channel, please make sure that you subscribe, you like the video, and you turn on those notifications. Right, let's get into it. Okay, Newcastle against Manchester City. They had a fantastic game. And it's very easy to look at Man City and say that they didn't play their starting 11. If we scroll down and have a look at some of the players, yes, they didn't play their full strength side, but I don't think that's Newcastle's problem. And they did bring on the likes of Matheus Nunes, Jeremy Doku, and Phil Foden. And they also had Erling Haaland on the bench, so I'm not sure that Man City have too much to complain about. On the Newcastle front, they made changes as well, and I was impressed with the way they came back out in the second half after they really received quite a beating in the first half. If we have a look at the first half of the attacking momentum bar, you can see it was pretty much all Man City, and that's quite tough to watch for a Newcastle fan who will have been watching their side at home against Man City, expecting their side to really start to go toe-to-toe with them, with the energy and the changing of sides, but they didn't manage to in the first half. They were very defensively resolute, I might add, and they then managed to up their game in the second half. I just want to talk about a couple of players because I was very impressed with Tino Livramento. Extremely impressed. Him and Alexander Isak, who managed to get the goal in the end, were brilliant for me. It was all about a team performance, but Joe Linton coming into the side really did add an extra physicality to the squad. And then when we look at the back four, this is not the same back four that Newcastle play with at all. Obviously, you have Dan Burn instead of Matt Targett. You have Cher and Botman instead of Dummett and Lascelles. And I thought, to a man, in that back four, every single player did themselves justice. Lewis Hall came into the midfield. I'm not sure why he's a left winger here. He came into the midfield. Joe Linton was the winger. Tonali did a good job. He was the quality that really started to gel everything together. And then you had the likes and the young presence of Lewis Miley. Jacob Murphy had a bit of a stop-start game, but energy-wise he was pretty good. From an average player perspective, down this left-hand side for Newcastle, you can see that really Lewis Hall dropped back into a left-back position whenever Targett went forward, and vice versa. Joe Linton came inside to try and help with the midfield presence of Man City, and overall Newcastle were a very good defensively organised side. If we have a look at some of the player stats, I want to have a look at defensive statistics because I want to highlight Tino Livramento right here. Now it notes here that he had a one last man tackle. He made 8 tackles in the entire game, the most of any player. He had 3 interceptions and he was only dribbled past twice. He is a gem, I'm telling you guys. He is absolutely fantastic, and he was on form today. Lascelles made 7 clearances, and it's just some of these statistics that really do highlight how well Newcastle did from a defensive point of view. If we have a look generally at some of the stats, you can see Newcastle at 33% possession. It's very difficult to keep your concentration for that length of time. They actually had more shots on target than Manchester City did, and moving on from that, they actually won more of their duels. They were fantastic. They won 51 duels compared to Man City's 41. They lost possession less times. They had more tackles, more interceptions, and more clearances. I think they thoroughly deserved to win the match. The effort that they put in, the quality that they eventually had to carve out a chance, they were fantastic. To a man, they were brilliant. And now we're going to have a look at some in-game moments because it really needs to be highlighted how well this side have done. I really did think that Newcastle were excellent in this match, especially from a defensive point of view. If you see this example, this is the back four, this is the midfield 3, and then you have the 2 wingers that are willing to bring themselves back and make sure that there isn't too much distance between the front of the pitch and the back of the pitch. It just makes the passing lanes that little bit more difficult to play through, and it also means that there are always going to be overloads and multitudes of people who are able to really pressurize that Manchester City attack. If we move on and have a look at the corner that I want to highlight, this is the ball floated in the air. We're going to see Gvardiol challenging at the back post, and it would have been a completely free header had it not been for Dummett here, who spins round after being held back by Ake, and he manages to get his head on it. And what I want to highlight here is the tenacity that Dummett really shows in this instant. This is a much better angle. Look at that. He spins round, and this was Newcastle throughout the entirety of the game. Now I want to talk to you about the midfield presence, or the real exuberance and the tenacity of the Newcastle midfield. Gvardiol is currently on the ball, and Kovacic or Calvin Phillips are waiting to receive the pass. Newcastle have actually flooded this area and have decided to push 5 people up in amongst this to try and stop Manchester City from playing through the lines, or especially playing through Newcastle. This does not work, and Joe Linton, who is a much needed recovery in terms of injury, manages to make that challenge, and it goes over to Alexander Isak, who is able to really spin, and then Newcastle are away. Murphy and then you've got Target, all both sprinting towards that Manchester City goal, almost on a 3v2 in a certain scenario. Man City players at the bottom of your screen here, but they did such a good job of making sure they could carve out opportunities from the pressure and the engagement in the middle of the pitch. It doesn't come to anything in this instance, but it really does show the tenacity that Eddie Howe wants from his side. Come second half, and we have the inclusion of these two, Anthony Gordon and Bruno Guimaraes. Bruno Guimaraes really being that metronome in midfield, allowing Newcastle to retain the ball that little bit more. And Anthony Gordon, with his ball retention as well, on that left-hand side, just making sure that he's able to keep the ball for Newcastle and give that back line and the defensive players that little bit time to rest. Now we want to fast forward to the goal. This is Jamal Lascelles on the ball right here. Now what it seems like is there isn't a pass on at all. What he's going to do is ping a ball into Jacob Murphy, and he spins immediately. Now what this pass does is take out not 1, not 2, but 3 Manchester City players with one singular pass. It's absolutely sublime. He plays that pass through, and then Newcastle are away. Joe Linton is sat here on this left-hand side, and what he does is just drive towards the box. He begs for the ball later, and really it's all about maintaining space, maintaining opportunity, and that's exactly what Murphy does. He plays that pass into Joe Linton, who then drives across the box. It's a brilliantly worked move, and if you see here, look at the amount of Manchester City presence here looking at Joe Linton. I cannot believe he does this, but he does. He manages to run round and play that cross through. Again, Joe Linton is an absolute must when it comes to really establishing the way that Newcastle wants to play. His physicality, his ability on and off the ball now is just sublime. He plays that pass through, and obviously they get a little bit of luck. I don't think that Rico Lewis should be doing anything other than clearing his lines. He leaves the ball completely, and it leaves a completely free option for Alexander Isak. We fast forward, and that's the goal. Here is a still of Rico Lewis just leaving that pass. I mean, it's criminal. Guardiola will be absolutely furious with it, but I've got a bit of sympathy for the young lad. He doesn't know what's behind him. He hasn't checked, and it's all about experience at that point, on knowing when you should leave it and when you shouldn't. Fast forwarding to this, and I just want to pinpoint my man of the match, and that was Tino Livramento in this particular instance. Here we have Akanji. He's about to play the ball over the top of this Newcastle back line. Lascelles is currently marking Jack Grealish, but off your screen, what you can't see is that Matheus Nunes is actually making a run to the back post. Here he is just on this left-hand side of the image, and if I fast forward, you can see that he is currently being marked by Tino Livramento, who does not play offside. I love this move. He does not play offside, and he said he follows the run with Matheus Nunes, and it allows him to get that last man tackle. Remember the statistic that I showed you earlier on in the video? This is it. He does a sensational job of making sure that he follows that run, makes that tackle, and it's just sublime. Brilliant work. This is a better angle of it. He just gets the ball brilliantly following the man. And this was Newcastle the entire time. And this was later on in the game. 3 Newcastle players closing down Matheus Nunes, stopping any kind of play from happening. I think Matheus Nunes really messes up here, and I think Pep's going to stamp this out because he has so many passes on, so many different avenues to be able to get out of this. But what I want to focus on in this particular instance is the Newcastle press, the Newcastle energy, the Newcastle dynamic of energy, pressing, defending from the front, and this is exactly what Eddie Howe would have wanted, and it gives them that amazing win. It was a hard-fought battle for Newcastle, but I thought they did absolutely sensational. And in the end, in my opinion, thoroughly deserved the win. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. What did you think of the game? How well did you think Newcastle played? And do you think Man City could have done any better? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Thank you ever so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you learned something new. And I hope to see you in the next one. But until then, take care.